Thank you everyone for attending the MetaHuman Challenge and watching. Just want to first of all say a big thank you to all of the people that participated in the MetaHuman Challenge. Now, when we first set out to create this challenge, the reason why we did it is at UneeQ, what we do is we make it easy for large enterprises to create AI digital human interactive experiences. And part of that process is we work with our customers, we run a series of workshops, we come up with a brief, a persona, a personality, like what's in the challenge. And then our art team goes ahead and creates that digital human using MetaHuman as a base. Now, for us, we've got more and more interest from customers wanting to create these digital humans. And so our pipeline's getting quite full, but we only have a limited amount of, the team is only a limited size for us to be able to fulfill on that. And it's even with our sort of fairly optimized pipeline, it can take about a month and a half for us to create a digital human. And so we thought, well, how could we go out there and get more artists on board to help us with our work, but also at the same time sort of nurture and create more of a community around MetaHuman, which is already a really big thing, but creating really great artists and building on the artist community using that technology is still a growing area. So what we've created is with this MetaHuman Challenge, I'm going to go through and go through some of the rules and guidelines and introduce our judges, and then we'll go into the top 6 finalists that we picked out as a shortlist of all the entries that came through. So thank you to everybody that participated. The amount of effort that went through was just absolutely spectacular to see. It amazes me every time when I sort of see people put so much effort into a competition, with no promise of whether they'll get something out of it or not, and just to showcase their work and put the effort in is really admirable, and I really appreciate each and every one of you that have done that. So let's go into it. So the challenge was to create the most realistic real-time digital human render on Unreal Engine using MetaHuman as a base. And as I said, we're using MetaHuman at our company, which is why we suggested using MetaHuman as a base, and not to mention that MetaHuman is an incredible technology as well to be using for creating digital humans. And the prize is $10,000 US. It is just, we pay it out. It's not gear or subsidies of anything. It is, you'll simply get paid $10,000 US if you are the winner of this challenge. The rules, I've said this numerous times now, is MetaHuman based. It's rendered in Unreal Engine. Now, no post-processing outside of Unreal Engine. The reason why we did that is just to make it so it's all about what you can achieve within Unreal Engine. And I wanted the judges to be able to see the purest form of what comes out there. There's a lot of talented people that, of course, can do a lot of post-processing as well, but I really want to show can do straight out of the engine. Digital human must be created within the competition timeframe. So unfortunately, you can't use work prior to this. You must have started it within the timeframe. The use of third-party assets is allowed, but must be declared. That's because in industry, using third-party assets, of course, is going to be commonplace, and there's no reason why you shouldn't use those. However, it is important that you declare those because that can shortcut your process in creating the final works, and it's only fair for others that if they put the effort in to create the assets from scratch, that they're also able to be recognized for that. And no use of generative AI. That's an interesting one. We sort of talked about this a little bit. Generative AI has been a very recent advancement. And so for the purposes of this, we wanted to really showcase the talents of our artists and really focus on that rather than leveraging all the latest and greatest in generative AI tools. Actually, speaking of which, no, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that later. So let's introduce the judges. So we have here just a ridiculous all-star panel of judges. When we first created the competition, I wanted to get a high caliber of judges so that as competitors and participants in this challenge, that you would be showcasing your work in front of some of the world's best talent when it comes to digital humans. And I wasn't sure if we could get everybody on board at the beginning, but I'm glad to say that we were able to get some incredible artists. So go through one by one. You may be familiar with a number of these people already. Oh, go back. And so going from the left, we've got Baolong Zhang. Now, you may have seen his work on Instagram and ArtStation. some incredible likenesses, some famous characters in Unreal Engine, but most well known perhaps for his work at UneeQ, or maybe not so well known, works sort of quietly in the background for us a lot of the time. But all of the work that you've seen in this slide deck is done by Baolong here. And Baolong is the man that does a lot of the work for us here at UneeQ. We've got Ian Spriggs, who's a very well-known portraiture artist. It's you may not realize, but the image, the profile image that's actually shown in the slide is actually a render from Ian of himself, which is just absolutely incredible. If you haven't seen Ian's work, go check it out. Şefki, who is another incredible portfolio artist who does a lot of that in his free time. Once again, check out his portfolio on Instagram, and some incredible work on Michael B. Jordan as well. It's was it your first artwork in Unreal Engine, Şefki?
Like personal project, yeah.
A first
Obviously,
personal project.
I work at Epic, so I'm using Unreal all the time. But yeah,
Which I didn't realize. Which I didn't realize until until I started reaching out to Şefki and started talking to Epic Games. I was like, oh yeah, did you know that he works at Epic as well? I was like, oh, okay. Had no idea. It's nice.
ILM. Yeah, it's the thing.
Now it's public. Now everybody knows.
Now everyone knows.
So thank you for joining us. And then we've got Aleksa. So Aleksa is a character artist also at Epic Games. Well, Şefki's at Cubic Motion, right? Part of the Epic family.
And Epic. Yeah.
And then Aleksa is part of the Three Lateral team at Epic. Now, speaking to Aleksa, he's been a part of the Three Lateral team. I can tell he's been a part of the team for a long time, having worked on numerous titles, Horizon Zero Dawn being one of my favorite. Love that game. Incredible artist, also involved with the latest Blue Dot. If you haven't seen Blue Dot, I don't know where you are in this world, you've been living under the rock, but go check out Blue Dot, which was released by the Three Lateral team, part of Epic Games. Just an incredible piece of work, benchmark digital human work. You got to check it out. So thanks for joining us. Thanks. So thanks. Is there anything that any of the judges want to say before I move on?
Hello.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
I take that as a no or a yes. So judging criteria, in terms of the judging criteria for this challenge, sort of we talked about and noodled about what the criteria should be. How do we score the entries and that sort of thing? And we landed on like a simple open set of criteria. So we went with appeal and technical. And the reason being is, first of all, from an appeal perspective, we sort of thought about it in terms of how we do it with our customers. Work through the brief, we have a persona, and then our customers see it for the first time, and then we do some iterations, and we work through these iterations to get to a point where we're happy, where the customer's finally happy. Now, they're not technical, our customers are not technical, but what they're looking for is, will our customers like this digital human? Does it fit the brand? Does it fit the story that we have for our that we've created? So when we're talking about appeal here, is the character likable? It doesn't even need to mean that it's perfect or pretty. We're not necessarily in that aspect. We're not looking for rendering perfection or necessarily even lighting and all that sort of stuff. Like, yes, that all makes a difference, and yes, that's part of it, but it's, what are we, this digital human that you've created and how you've presented it, does it really tell a story? Does this fit the brief? Then, of course, we still have to celebrate the technical side of it. So this is the stuff that our customers don't see, but executing these properly obviously make a big difference. So, did you get the anatomy right? Did you get the look development right? Are you, artifacts and glitches? The customers do notice the things, of course, like, does the hair look good? Does it look realistic? Does it all come together? And then we added a part here, which is, we're off-the-shelf assets used, which I talked about, where if you use off-the-shelf, that's absolutely fine. But obviously, if you've put a lot of effort in, you've written your own shaders, you've created even just sculpting and texturing, things like that. Like, if you create your own textures from scratch, creating pores and all that sort of stuff, then that's a lot more effort that you went into, which should be recognized. But there's a real balance here. You know, I had a few emails from from some of the participants, and you know, there's a balance between, will I get more recognition if I sculpt everything by hand? If I do every pore and I do all the textures from scratch, will I get more, will I get rated more highly or judged better versus aesthetic appeal? Will it get judged more? And I said, well, you've got to balance it, right? If you can make everything look better, I would do that first. And then you could use, and if that requires doing the technical part, then, take that approach. So before I jump onto the next slide and we'll go into the top 6, I'd be curious to know, actually, that the judges, if I get you guys to have a bit of a chat, you guys have seen a lot of artwork on the internet. You've seen, you've created your own artwork. What are you looking for? What are you guys looking for? Let's start with Aleksa, because you're showing up on my screen. Like what as you go into this, what are the things that you would be looking for?
Maybe our goal as an artist will be to somehow gather the visual informations about many different populations that are living on Earth, and use those characteristics to define what actually these race make unique. And this is something that I personally approach while creating presets that we ship within MetaHuman Creator. And we was thinking what those presets need to represent, and what are those features to make the variety of different shapes. So we approach it in a way that studied all the continents and try to understand what are those features that make a certain race unique. So for me, the combination, what can be wrong actually, it's not use this usual combination, because the people are expecting to recognize themselves, and in that way you make the character realistic.
Awesome. Who else? Has anybody else got anything they'd like to share?
I suppose. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead. I suppose for myself, I'm more looking into believability and the human aspect of things, like capturing the human essence. Because for me, it's like technical, it makes things look dated. So if you get technical achievements in a couple of years, things look dated, and then it starts looking fake. So I kind of avoid looking at technical aspects of things and just look at believability. How well did they capture the human soul? Like how did they light and pose and composite the images? And it's like, how are they revealing the subject's identity? Like how is that conveying to the viewer? So that's the type of stuff I look for more than anything else.
Question on that, Ian, like that's quite, that can't be easy, right? Like what is the thought process? Like when you do one of your own portraitures, right, and you go through the process of creating one of those, like how do you start, like to get to that point of believability? Like what are the things you're considering right from the beginning?
Well, one thing about my portraits, I always do people I know, because it's like I have a personal relationship with them, and so I can actually know them. So I have a very good idea of what I want to convey. So these portraits I do, I'm not trying to create something new. I'm just trying to create something like an experience I've had with them. So it's like, this is a conversation we had together. This is the impression I got from them, and that elements of what makes them who they are. That's what I try to portray. So I'm not just picking some random person offline and trying to mimic their likeness and trying to like create their personality. It's like, I'm trying to capture the personality from what I already know onto the screen. So yeah, it's just, and then there's a couple techniques you can do to help that, like posing changes the way we see people, lighting changes our emotions and stuff. So there's a couple tricks you can use to help bring out personality and stuff.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I agree. Posing is huge, and lighting especially as well. And I was just going to say as well, from my perspective, because we work with MetaHumans a lot at work, someone who doesn't just take the MetaHuman and, we've seen them a lot, and I think that there's only a very limited library of faces in the MetaHuman databases, and So you can kind of instantly recognize them when they're online. So it'd be nice to see how someone like is able to push it and make it something ironically unique. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Cool. Baolong, anything you want to add?
Yeah, for basically I have the like not a little very little different way, because I always think from the audience point of view, because we like I say, we do the work for the client. I starting with what the client is looking for. I'm not do the things what I like to do. I want to see what the client want to see, especially for the customer service, the avatar we work on. We just try to create a believable but a likable character. Likable is #1 priority we are looking for. Realistic is nice, but the likable is because we give these things to ordinary people. They are not artists. They are not no background artists, so they don't see what we see. So I just try to give them what they feel the avatar. Yeah, so let's say friendly, believable, trustable is this kind of stuff I'm more looking into. Yeah, that's it.
Seems like a gather of all these approaches will give the best results. Actually, I was thinking about when Ian was speaking about the way he approached it. It's like what the traditional way when in old times where painters were actually hanging out with their with the person they were portraying for months to understand their personality and to meet each other so they can actually portray in a right way the emotions and everything. But at that time, the time was slower, if you can say like that. Now the speed of our time is like somehow pushing us to not approach these things so deep. But I really like that what you say.
Yeah, I suppose like all those masters, if we're going to talk about masters and stuff, it's like
yeah,
they spent a lot of time getting to know the subjects, but they also, the portraits they made were about a status symbol, because the subject was paying a lot of money to get these portraits done, so they wanted to have like these paintings on the wall to be like, look how high status I have. And so sometimes it's like, well, how much flattery do you do, or how much truth do you do? So it's like you want to make a likable portrait, but sometimes that person's not even likable. So you gotta find the balance of
this was happening through the story.
What makes a person likable? That's the thing, right? Like great characters, likable characters, is not beautiful people, right? They're not the same thing, you know. Like, and that's always been a thing. It's like Baolong, you and I have discussions about this. I don't know how you do it, but for our customer projects, it's always like people love it. Like people clap and they almost bring people to tears when they first get their digital, because it's theirs, you know, right? There's a real attachment. They've gone through this whole process and it's theirs and it's representing their company. Like they've put heaps of heart and soul into creating this, and when it gets delivered, the people love it. But likable doesn't mean pretty necessarily, right? So that's only one aspect of it. But what to you guys is like a likable, you know, character or digital human?
It's hard to say, really. I mean, if you think about like character tropes used in like animation, like Pixar, Disney, I think there's like something that we know as humans we recognize as being like friendly, or you know, the opposite of like a, you know, villain and the hero type character. So I think it's probably just stuff that's like hardwired into us, like trope wise, but I guess over centuries it potentially deviates slightly in how it looks. But yeah, it's hard to pinpoint what it is, but I guess opposite of a villain or something evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of hard to determine exactly what it is. I remember I worked at one company a couple of years ago where I had a model of likeness, and I think I nailed it. I think I got pretty close, but as I got to dailies, they just rejected it. Like, we don't like it, we don't like it, we don't like it. And I was like, matched it basically 1-to-1. They're like, we don't like it. And so I basically just made it symmetrical and made the guy actually good looking. And then I submitted it, which was no longer him, but they're like, oh yeah, we like it now. So they
Perfect.
weren't basing it on fact, they were basing it on like
Yes.
like likeness or like the likability, which is
Yes.
I don't know, not always the best.
So I think beauty does have something to do with it, probably.
Mhm.
I find that
And
very
in fact-
interesting. Sorry, Alexa, go ahead.
No, I just want to say the fact that the people can recognize themselves in the character. This, I think it's, I mean, our habits or whatever, the personality that Şefki was talking about.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's really interesting that we have a self-perception of ourselves, you know, like we found that as well when you create a likeness. It's really difficult. Actually, Ian, you know, when you present your likeness back to your friends, you know, the people you know, how do they react to it? Like, do they have, because they're not a client, right? You're doing that as part of your studies and things like that. Like is the reaction different because they haven't, you know, they're not asking for something to be done?
Oh, like you mean if I do a portrait of them and then present
Yes.
the portrait to them?
Yes.
Some people like it, but some people hate it. I mean, some people see themselves in a different lights. So I usually do the way I see them. So because it's my artwork, so this is how I see you, and this is how I'm going to create the portrait. But that's not how they see themselves. And so some people have been really upset about it and just like not wanting to share it or post it, or
Oh,
they've been
wow.
pretty offended by it. Some of them, but it's most people like them.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it's like
they
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that aren't they mostly like your friends and family? So are they not like, you know, don't post that? Yeah.
Well, the first portrait I did of my mom, she just started crying because she didn't like it.
Oh,
So I had to do a second one to make up for the first one.
Mm.
that's right.
Yes, makeup for women is so important. You did it right, they like. If you're not, they don't like.
That's interesting. No wonder your art is so good, Ian. Your experience of doing portraiture for your mum's like set the bar up pretty high.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, thanks for the insight. Let's move on, and really interesting discussion already. So, speaking of likable characters and capturing personality, let's talk about the character brief. So I'm going to read this through, and then they'll allow us to get it back into our heads, what the brief was for Grace. So Grace is in her early 30s. She was born in Algiers, her father's hometown, but moved to Madrid when she was a young girl to be closer to her mother's family. All her life, people have said she's been easy to talk to, approachable even, with an endearing smile that makes people seemingly gravitate towards her. It's lucky I'm a people person, she'll often quip to her friends when tourists inevitably ask her for directions on the streets of the Spanish capital. But she enjoys that. In fact, she encourages it. She keeps her mid-length hair mostly away from her face to look more approachable. She'll make eye contact with people who look lost. She's not from a wealthy family, but through conversation with others, she feels like she's learning a little about the world, like she's traveling momentarily. Her ambition is to train to be a journalist and use that platform to help tell people's unheard stories from around the world. Now, the interesting thing about this character brief, and which is a little bit different to what we do with company work, is that we don't have any imagery. We consciously didn't add any imagery, well, certainly not outside of the words. We wanted people to interpret it themselves. And I think that's kind of part of the fun of it. And everybody comes from different backgrounds. They've had different experiences, stories, that sort of thing, from different cultures. So the interpretation is all different. So I have lost you guys. So let's bring you guys over to the side here. This is the very first one, Amir. He has used skin textures from Texturing XYZ's V-Face pack. I didn't have any other details on what else was used. Now, just a lesson for us running the competition for next time, it will be good to ask for breakdowns and more description. So the assets that we use and the description of the tools and things like that were fairly light. The breakdowns were light. For those people who did send them, thank you very much. I haven't shown the judges the breakdowns because not everybody sent them because I didn't ask for them. So for now, this is the first time the judges are seeing these images, and we're just going to go through the final presentation images. You'll note that the videos are not part of the slide deck as well. Those will go through to the judges afterwards. So let's start. Now, what I might do is scroll through a few of the images, and I'll land back on this one, and then we can have a bit of a chat. I think what images from this one? Yeah, we did. So let's just sit on one. So yeah, interested to hear from the judges. What is the first reaction? We can go both, you know, what you like, what you don't like, what you'd improve on, what are things that you sort of commend, what was captured well, how does it match the brief? Would love to get your feedback. I mean, you guys have all senior artists, so I'm sure you've all given feedback to artists before, but let's hear it.
Maybe
sorry.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I first do that. Yeah, because I knew I work for UneeQ, yeah, quite a long time. I just give an idea what, yeah, for me, what did I judge the for digital human. So first, I want to like separate the two parts: technical part and the artistic part, like I say, interpretation of the brief. So technical part, I think this, yeah, is okay, is good. Some the detail a little too smooth maybe. Yeah, technically is okay, but for me the main problem is artistic interpretation of the brief. Just for me, the first impression, she is quite very have a strong feature, like the jawline, the eyebrows, the thing. Yeah, she gave is a very, what is the word, tough and very a little bit model-like, very sassy, that model-like. So it's good for maybe someone, but for this brief, I think she is less approachable, less friendly. So this is the number one impression. Yeah, so this is pretty much what I feel that. So
Yeah, she kind of looks a bit like a secret agent kind of character. You know, with the slick hair. I think the hair's nice. I quite like the shading on the hair. It's got that shiny, slick look to it. But yeah, agreed with the skin detail. I think, you know, considering they use XYZ, can't really see that much detail. It does look pretty smooth. So I think realism-wise, you know, from a distance, it works a bit better, but close up, it breaks slightly the illusion.
I also feel that from the character standpoint, it's like, yeah, it's real character. But when I'm comparing to the brief, if I understand well, it's like 30 years, right? So I find some incompatibility with the style of the hair, which was not common for that years, for the eyebrows that was still not typical for this age, this period of time. So I feel there is a lot of contemporary modern makeup, which is like actual now. But if you look at through the brief and through the time, I just find that a little bit not, I mean, not responding clearly to the brief too. So, but from the other side, I was just looking at the character. It's like very contemporary modern woman. I feel it more like a businesswoman of this age rather than something that was like almost 100 years ago.
Oh, we may have a misunderstanding there. She is aged in her early 30s, not set.
Okay, then I'm
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
Then
that's
everything could not be okay. Okay.
It's okay, no problem.
So the brief was she's supposed to be a journalist, correct? Or she
She's
wants to be
aspiring to be a
Aspiring.
journalist.
So my input would be if you're trying to represent a journalist is somebody who questions, somebody who's inquisitive and wants to know answers and is very engaging. Whereas I don't feel engagement from her eye direction or body language. She's kind of just like looking up to the side. It's almost like she is a model, but I would like to have seen more like her eyes like being more engaging with the viewer. Because it's like basically the eyes tell you what you're thinking, because the eyeballs are connected to your brain. So whatever you think, your eyeballs kind of react to it. And so she doesn't really feel like she's asking you a question or she's going to be asking any questions. I feel like she's just kind of looking off to the side as if she is like walking down a runway or something, like a model runway. So I think the mark of being a journalist has kind of not been hit on it. Technically, I think there's some pretty good things about it. Like the hair, I thought that was pretty cool. How it's got the slick back look is pretty good. Şefki is right, the pore detail is not quite high enough. And I feel like there's a lot of lack of detail in the lips.
So amazing, coming back to the original conversation that we had around posing, like even just the imagery, right? Like how much story is being told through the camera angles and just even eye gaze.
I always tell people when people send me their work for like feedback, I always say like make the shoulders slightly asymmetrical. Like if you just want a really subtle tweak to make someone feel more natural, like they're actually standing, because we tend to do a lot of like neutral front on shots as like 3D character artists. And so if you just slant the shoulders slightly, it just gives someone a bit more of a relaxed feel, even a slight tilt to the head. So really subtle stuff. But they did tilt the head, of course, here. But yeah, like Ian was saying, I think it could have actually been maybe more powerful if she was actually looking directly at the camera, or they did some shots in that way.
Interesting, actually, talk about the posing side of it, right? Because if you're working in a studio, now I have a huge amount of experience working in big studios and things, but if you're working in a team of people, your character artwork, do you often create your part of it, right? The character art, and then it's posed in T-pose or A-pose, and that's how it's presented back for rigging and all that sort of stuff? Or do you actually, will you actually present a version where it's posed, right? Because you guys have done personal work and you've presented projects, you've done the posing, you've done the camera work, the lighting, and all that sort of stuff, right? That's end to end. But I would imagine that a lot of artists coming through haven't done their own personal projects, or they haven't had the opportunity to, or for whatever reason. Do you guys develop? Do you think those little sensitivities to posing and all that sort of stuff have been developed through personal projects, or like would you get the opportunity to learn that sort of stuff in studios? Yeah, keen to hear thoughts on that.
I know from my visual effects industry background, you got to remove all the personality. So I usually do the T-pose, and so the animators or the actor with mocap will add that personality, what they want into it. If you start adding pose and all that stuff into it, it's kind of like you as an artist, you put your own input. So in a production, it doesn't really work like that. So the only time I ever pose anything would be for personal work.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
yeah. Baolong, Aleksa, like how do you learn that? How do you learn that skill, right? Like do you is it really you have to do personal work, or do other art forms like that? If you're only ever doing character work in a pipeline to do T-poses and things like that, like how do you get an appreciation for, telling a story?
Yeah, I can maybe tell something from recent experience that you, when we were working on Blue Dot, we actually was trying, before we started creating and designing the character, we knew who was the actor, so we know a little bit of his personality. We could actually take his personality and place it in different environments that we related to our story. That was that we were writing in contemporary to realize make the entire piece. So with the sketches, with all techniques that our team allows, I mean, in our team we have concept artists and designers, so we were blessed to approach it in different ways. From a drawing perspective, we can say like comic books, and we made a comic book of the entire story before we even started doing anything. So we like try to understand better his personality, maybe find a couple of frames that was like key frames for us or his personality. We want to depict him like this. This moment is like his sadness, his moment of his pain. We feel everything in this sketch, and we somehow through entire process we always getting back to see these sketches work and try to convey this this emotion from this research we done before. So this was like one of creative approaches that we take for Blue Dot.
You do the concept art as well, right? You do the concept design as well as the character art. You'll draw and do the concept design as well.
Yeah. I take this part in Blue Dot, but usually for my production for a couple of for so many years I was working the models at the level of production, which is now you can see it in MetaHuman. This is the result of our team power of and modeling pipeline. So the one part is that I understand and can achieve some realistic results in digital human, but from other side, my passion and my previous with experience with the Academy of Fine Arts somehow bring some combination of these two things that I can approach in different ways.
Awesome.
And it's very useful for our team, so we can discuss in many different ways.
Cool, thank you.
So,
our next top 6 is Maxim. So used Quixel assets for some of the environment materials, custom modeling, sculpting, grooming, and there's a bunch of tools there that have been used, like a little shopping list of tools, which I won't go through. You can read for yourself. But lots of custom work obviously had gone into this one based on the things that are listed. Let's jump into it. All right, let me know if you want me to jump back and forward with images. First impressions?
My first impression is that I think the normals are off. Aleksa probably knows.
yeah.
This wrinkle feels doesn't feel like it's sitting with it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, but in general, I mean, this will be from technical perspective, but
you can see in general, you guys have worked with them for a long time.
It's like this.
It's like a big fear when you work in Unreal Engine. You're like, double check those normals because you have to flip the green channel.
That's right. I think we've seen that as well at Baolong.
Yeah, but this work have really powerful emotion. I mean, I feel there. I feel like drawing this person, and she's kind of funny, and they make jokes, and
he definitely feels like more of a people person on this one, because you can tell it's like it feels like there's a photographer took it to a photo studio and just took a photo of her, and she's kind of like at that point between photos where she's actually talking with the photographer, and she's got like that. So the photographer said a joke or something, and then she's laughing about it. So it's nice because you actually feel a sense of that story behind it. Like it's just a couple seconds story, but it is there that she feels a little bit shy, but she's behind the camera, but she's also enjoying the conversation with the photographer, which is kind of nice. So I think the artist did a good job capturing some personality for that aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
think,
sorry, there you
go
go.
ahead. I was just gonna say, like for all my work, what I would do is I'll think of a sentence and make the subject act out that sentence, and I'll try and capture that sentence. So there's always a thought in the head I'm trying to portray. So it's not just like this static character. I think that's what they did on Gollum on Lord of the Rings. So there'll be dialogue where he's talking, but then there'll be scenes where he's not talking, but they'll give him a sentence for his thinking, and so the animators would have to act for that sentence he's actually thinking.
So interesting. That we're thinking about that. You know, I've been thinking about that a lot at UneeQ. So my involvement at UneeQ is I led the art and animation team and work on the synthetic animation system we have for simulating behavior, and I sort of look at all these characters and NPCs and things like that, and you walk up to them in games and they just kind of go through the same loops, or they're just standing there staring into space, right?
Mhm.
And I have the exact same thought. I'm like, if I was just standing there watching somebody that runs, well, I'll say ramen shop because that was kind of one of the recent demos from NVIDIA on NPC stuff. It's like, if somebody's standing there running a ramen shop, if I was just sitting there not interacting with them at all, can I tell what their emotional state is? Can I tell what they're thinking about based on the actions, their posture, their movement, the way they gaze around, that sort of thing? Like, what are they thinking about? Are they, in the ramen shop when they're talking about, the gangs and all that sort of stuff, like it just did for me, the animation didn't communicate anything about the frustration or anything like that. There was I don't know if frustrated, scared, anxious, the voice was missing as well. So it wasn't communicating it a bit. So I think it's really interesting, Ian, that you say that as well, is that what is the internal dialogue, right? You sit there staring at a person, which I'm sure you guys have done, observing people, sitting on a park bench and watching people, and you're like, you can almost tell what's going on for that person. And it's really interesting.
As a human being, it's impossible not to be conveying some sort of emotion. Even if you stood there doing nothing, you'll either be like, oh, that person looks a little tired, or they're like spaced out. And even being spaced out is an emotion.
Yeah.
It's like, somehow for digital humans, you can actually get rid of all the emotion, which is kind of weird. So for human beings, you can't. Like, your eyes are always doing something, your hands are always doing something. There's always something there.
It's interesting that there's a cross-disciplinary thing which we kind of touched on, right? The posing and all that sort of stuff, like that photography. If you're, I've done a bit of photography, and for photography, you have the same principles, the same fundamental art principles, but if we think about it from a portraiture perspective and telling a story, like it's the same thing. And I think we touched on it at the beginning, which is, it doesn't have to be technical, right? Like, some incredible photos are taking on the most potato of phones, right? Like that, it's just the moment is captured, the expression, the story, what's happening in the action. You can tell so much of a story from one single image, right? One single frame. You don't need to have it animated for that to be captured. And I guess that's sort of the level that you can aspire to when it comes to creating digital humans and creating artwork like this. Is you have control of all the pixels that are going on, which means you can take the essence out of it. You can use the most average of phones to capture something, and you still capture the essence of it because you're just capturing a moment with an image. But when you're creating all those pixels from scratch, you can really, you can miss the target as well. Yeah. Interested in more thoughts. Baolong, anything from you?
Yeah, I think this one is the capture personality, also the follow the brief really good. Yeah, it's overall is nice, it's good. Yeah, but this, as I say, considering two part, technical part and artistic part. Technical part, I think, some part like the eyebrows stand out, the hairline a little too harsh. Yeah, that thing's a little bit off. So the other artist part is better. Yeah, technical part little need some work.
Any thoughts from you, Aleksa?
I was thinking about the subject you tackled before, and I was some ideas for the background was coming into my mind that both works was not using background as a powerful. I mean, in these cases, when we are maybe limited with the time and where the focus is on character exclusively, maybe you can use always a blurred background and you can tell a lot of stories. I mean, if she's in a park in a city, it's an actor actually. Background is a big actor when we're telling a story, even for these cases. So my just thoughts fly there, and I was thinking how we miss in both works this kind of thing. But yeah, I really like the expression. I feel she as a person. I like some technical aspects also. I like the hair. But from this storytelling perspective, I still kind of miss something. I'm not sure what it is. Even the clothing, it's well done, but maybe it's not appropriate for someone who's running all the time, taking some actions, searching for some situations. Not sure. It's too casual for me. But in general, I really like the vibe and the likeness of this person.
Any last thoughts? Ian, I think you were saying something before.
Oh, I was just agreeing with Baolong about artistically it's fantastic. I think they did a really good job, but technically there's a lot of things which could be improved upon. Like the big one, so Şefki was like the nasolabial fold. The ears could have a little bit more detail. They seem a little bit like rushed. Some details on the upper eyelid, eyebrows seem a little bit, I don't know, not too great. And even the hairline is all very consistent, like going one way. Yeah, there's a couple of technical things which could be improved on, but at least they focused on the art side of things, which I'm happy with.
Okay, nice work, Maxime. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Mobin, right. Once again, my fault for not asking people to put more detail into what they did, but it's all manually sculpted. It's the note that I got here. Right, first impressions. I've gone through the images. I'll just scroll back through a little bit.
The pose
like
is interesting.
sorry.
So I was going to say the pose is interesting. I kind of verges a little bit on stylized for me. I don't know if it's just the look of the skin, maybe the expression, something about it gives me more like on the verge of cartoonish rather than like realism. But yeah, it's an interesting piece. I want to hear you guys' thoughts as well. I'm trying to think.
Well,
yeah, it's really, yeah. Immediately I will see her in a stand-up comedian show. It's very, yeah, seems, yeah, a little bit over the top, the pose, yeah, even the color. Yeah, it's really strong personality, definitely. Yeah, I like the hair really nice. Yeah, the pose is really good. Yeah, just a little shame, not shame, that it's not exactly matching my idea, little brief. Yeah, a little bit more than friendly. It's really on your face a little bit. I don't know if you guys, it's a very strong personality, very dominant, very, yeah, more like on stage, like a comedian actress, be more fit the brief. Yeah, this is what I feel.
Yeah, when I first saw the face, I was like, it's like my question for you guys. Appeal and likability, right? This is one of those faces which is quite distinctive. I feel like it has such a strong personality, and I've looked at this a number of times going back and forth. I'm like, do I like this? And I'm like, there's something about it that I personally like, which is there's so much character here. Like there's so much character. Like I can kind of tell who this person is, can kind of tell the voice that she would have and the way she would be. Like there's a real strong communication of personality. Whether it fits a brief or not, I don't think it really fits personally for me. I don't think it fits the brief as well. But she's such a strong face. Like what anatomy? Let's talk anatomy. Like is this like like ethnic wise and the anatomy and all bringing it together? Does it work? Is this just a really strong face and a really strong personality, or are we sort of being like, it's quite jarring in that there's like there's something not quite technically not quite right as well?
Yeah,
I can maybe.
she definitely lies in
Sorry.
the uncanny valley a little bit. Sorry, go ahead, Aleksa.
No, sorry, yeah. No, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like she definitely lies in the uncanny valley. Like there's something not likable about her, but whether it's like it could be based on something accurate, but there's something where it's kind of like you're pushed away from it because it's like there's something about it you don't like. But it's kind of because it lies in the uncanny valley, it's kind of hard to determine what that is. It could just be a matter of some of the facial features that have been too defined. Like some of the wrinkles are too much, like they're too hard rather than like being a little bit softer. Like even her cheekbones, like her cheeks, are really like pushed to the limits. I mean, I like the attempt of trying to get that expression, which is a full expression. It's not a half expression, which is it's a very challenging thing to do. But it almost pushes it too much that it goes uncanny valley.
Yeah, I will agree with you. It works from some certain angles better than others, but I can feel there's some parts that somehow are contradictional to what we expect to see as viewers. I see some nose wrinkle active actually when in this expression we don't actually have a lot of wrinkling here, and I can see here the skin around the eyes is wrinkling actually, and also I can notice that these nasolabial smile lines are somehow distorted, even if it should be somehow straight and really stretched, because when you smile, it's part of the face, these muscles are stretching, and we see here some kind of wrinkles. But I will not doubt to the fact that it's not easy to do, but it's a little bit exaggerated. I will completely agree with Ian.
One thing I find quite distracting is the hand. The hand is not good. I'm sorry. Like it's just you can tell it's just kind of a rush job. It's like there's no detail. It's soft, and I try not to focus too much on technical stuff, but when technical things become such a distraction, it kind of takes away from the overall believability. And I think the hand kind of fails the overall portrait of it. I mean, it's not a bad pose, it's just technically needs to be worked on.
Yeah. We haven't talked about the clothing here. Like it's quite a loose piece of clothing, a lot of folds and all that sort of thing. Keen to get thoughts on that.
I like the folds around the arms. I mean, it could be. I don't know. Is this all manually sculpted? You said, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah.
They would have started with MetaHuman Creator. So if it's not in the catalog of clothing, there than they've.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Yeah, I was thinking it was maybe like Marvelous Designer or something, but the folds are sculpted nice in the arms. But the thing is, when obviously this isn't necessarily a portrait, so it doesn't have to be framed on the face. But when you are going to frame a portrait and you know that you're going to probably crop, do some shots that are cropped, I would spend some time focusing on the bit you're going to see around the neck. And I feel like the arms are successful, but then above that, it's just really flat. So it doesn't help basically the piece of work. But then if you had a close up of the wrinkles on the arms, you'd be like, looks great. But then the focus is the face, right? So I would spend a bit more time on the bit around the head.
Any other comments?
Talking about the clothing aspect of things or the skin detail?
Sorry, what was the question, Ian?
Sorry, I was just talking to Şefki. Were you talking about the clothing?
Yeah, clothing.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, yeah. I was saying that like to spend more time on as well on the part of the clothing that's near the head, because it's usually where you're going to frame a portrait. Yeah. So like in this case, this is okay because you're seeing a lot of the arms and the torso, but in the closer shots, the collar of the shirt looks really flat. So just some more work there. And also looks really thin, like it hasn't got like thickness to it. It just looks like a, really simple bit of geometry.
Yeah, you're right.
It's really interesting, the style of clothing that they've chosen here. Like it to me, it the color and the style of the clothing fits the character very well. I think they've done a good job of choosing the clothing here, which is not something I'd really thought too much about, was the clothing telling story as well. Like it's all part of it.
Yeah. I'll agree with you. It's really awesome. Even, I mean, the folds and the entire posture of this character, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think clothing is actually a huge subject for portraiture as well, because it's like every time we do portraits of people, I'm always like, wear what you want to wear, and they usually just wear their best stuff because they want the portrait to be like represent who they are, but also represent the best of who they are. And so it's like clothes are like the cover to the book type of thing. It's the first way we judge people was what they wear. And I mean, it's like, we say we shouldn't judge people, but we do. And it's usually based on mostly on clothing right off the bat. That's why like police officers wear like uniforms, because it's like we have to identify who they are and that they're a symbol of power, because it's like, and so they all wear the same clothing. And so when we see portraits, seeing what type of clothing they wear, it tells us what type of profession they might have, if they're outgoing or if they're introverted, if they're more expressive. Like it tells us a lot of details about them. And so I think with the choice of like the brights, like kind of pinkish red on this, it's kind of, it suits her personality because she's got an expressive personality, and so the clothing color kind of matches that. Yeah, it's a huge subject to talk about it, I think, the clothing.
And I was like always getting back to time when we were seeing the paintings of the old masters. The clothing was like telling their social status. I mean, they have at that time money to travel to Asia to find maybe perhaps something that was somehow expensive and not usual thing to see in Europe if the painter was from Holland, for example. So it was like telling the entire story of this rich man exploring the world and telling about his studies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I think it was King Henry or something. Like he spent millions of dollars per year just on clothing, just because he wanted to have the best status out there, and he'd always be painted with his best clothing on there.
Yeah. This is awesome. But I didn't know that. I mean, for clothing, I heard the stories about that, but I didn't know about fruits, for example, when the fruits was like in a lot of portraits we have in the background we have a lot of fruits, and was telling exactly the same story. So it was not easy to get to dinner table some exotic fruits. So it was telling.
Yeah, like if they have grapes in the background, like grapes are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So if you got grapes in the background, it's like you're pretty wealthy and rich, and like, you're somebody
That's so interesting. that thing.
You know, another cool one is when people have hands in portraits too. If you have two hands in a portrait, it means you're extremely wealthy because it takes a lot of time to paint hands.
Oh,
So
right.
you've got like one hand,
Yeah.
and if you got no hands, it's like you can't really afford them. So some of the top wealthiest portrait like commissions were done with hands on.
I mean, it works even now. I mean, if you want any extra asset, you will pay more money for that.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I can't even do it, right? Like it's.
So
Yeah, but the future will come back. We'll come back round to having hands and images. They'll be like,
yeah.
I didn't do this one.
But I think it's cool that this one's got the hand like right by the face. I mean,
Mm.
had they actually spent the time and actually made that hand look good, it could have really like sold it a bit more. But they kind of failed on the technicalities of the hand and kind of made it fail a little bit. But they had
So
the potential.
in production, right? Do you guys make the same compromises? The hands like just don't get as much attention as the face does.
Yeah, definitely.
Usually like clients, they never look at the hands. So you just kind of, you can get approval a lot faster because they usually just focus on the face and eyes. But yeah, I always try to focus on the hands if I have time.
Yeah.
I noticed that people don't model the back of the ear or inside the nostrils. So that's a telltale sign of someone's rushing.
Yeah, the nostrils is definitely one. Yeah, for sure. I noticed that too.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a tip for the community. I'd like to see more
Nostril, yeah.
upwards shots, thanks. And keep an eye out for Instagram. People putting out portfolios. There's a lot more shots of like right up the nostrils. Trending that there's back ears, the hands. It's like this shot's like this. All right,
So
next one up.
who made a back of the ear modeling will be a winner probably here.
Next time we do the challenge, there'll be a lot more back of the ear ones. Okay, we've got Mohammed, and this one's got we got Substance Painter for texturing. We got custom skin color and detail, sculpts, grooms. So this is also fairly custom, which is what I like to see. I think this one only has 3. Look how fast I did that. There's only 3 images for this one.
I think
Alright.
for me, should we start critiquing?
Yeah.
I think for me, like the anatomically, like it's off personally. So I think it just loses any kind of believability or relatability. It just feels a bit, even the clothing as well, like and the posing for me also it verges on a bit more what's the word to use? I want to say like cheesy. I can't think of another word for cheesy, but it's a bit like, I'm not, it doesn't tell me a personality. It just feels a bit out of the box. Even this one kind of gives like a model pose, catalog model pose. It doesn't really say much about the character.
Yeah, I agree. Like I can't really get any sense of personality. Like if you ask me who she is, I have absolutely no idea. Or what she's thinking, I have no idea.
It's like she was brought to a shoot and then they were like, do some poses, and then that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So with regards to the anatomy side of things, are you able to call out some of the stuff that sort of really stands out for you?
I mean, like I feel like with just more, I mean, doing a smile is really, really tricky. So kudos to everyone that done smiles, because I've only started sculpting smiles recently, and they're really, really hard to do. Because it's one thing trying to get someone to look believable in a neutral pose, and then trying to get them to look, because smiles are also, you know, if you even take like a photo of yourself smiling, it kind of looks a bit awkward because it's like a static, you know, you're just still smiling, which is not really natural anyway, but you're usually in movement. So it kind of, it's just a hard thing to do. But yeah, I mean, it's just an anatomical thing, like the nasolabials. I think also Unreal, like the shading, it's kind of consistent across quite a lot of these. The shading here, it feels off. This one's not like a normal issue, but I feel like potentially it's just a sculpting issue, and it's creating this like really huge shadow, which it you know, looks like odd. And also her eyes feel a bit too wide. When you smile, usually you see less of the iris. It will just give it more of a natural smile. When you're a bit wide-eyed and you're smiling, it looks a little bit creepy. And I think this is where it just verges slightly on the slightly creepy side. But one thing I will say is that I do feel like the teeth, shading-wise, looks pretty decent, which is good.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. With the eyes coming up, there's no wrinkles or anything. It's just like, it feels like if you cover up, like if you hide the eyes, you can see like, oh, there's a smile, but once you cover the mouth, it doesn't look like the eyes are reacting to the smile. Like it's just like they seem very separate. Whereas like you can't have like different parts of the face reacting separately. And one thing which distracted me is if you go to the first slide, the standing one, there's no way she would be able to stand up like that. She would just
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the center of gravity is completely off, which immediately you think it's like, okay, it's fake.
Will fall.
Baolong, Aleksa?
Yeah, as other guys say, the anatomy wise is very plain. It's very seems yeah, very puff without any, especially the clothes, the jeans, and also the face. Yeah, we say we don't want the really pretty people, but we have like a range of the facial feature in a golden ratio within some certain of the range. If too out of the range, like say the center of the face is a little bit too full. Yeah, really for the eye so large, the nose longer, so you don't feel comfortable. So this will give away, let the people to like trust the likability. Yeah, you will lose the likability. Yeah, a little distracting the out of proportion face. Yeah. Yeah, also she look too young for me. This is really like the early 20s. It's not really enough of a story, like the wrinkles, not much wrinkles on the face.
Aleksa?
Yeah, I will agree with all you guys. I mean, the thing that I notice, it's like all the elements are not assembled to make this face realistic. For example, I see the eyebrows actually have a breaking angle where actually the eyebrows are breaking, are too large, and somehow make these eyes not entering in the orbit of the skull from the anatomical. So this is really important to define how actually how the orbits are the main thing that holding actually the eye. And if we don't respect with the rule things that come along with the other elements such as brows, eyebrows, and also in this case the wrinkles that should happen, and respect the entire motion of the face with when the smile is active, actually is missing. So the combination of the elements make this unrealistically, and I can't find any point where I can stick and say, okay, this from here, this is realistic, rather than only the smile. It's like the teeth shading is like Şefki said, it's realistic, but other than that, I can stick to any point where we can say, okay, this works. And it's usual thing when when you open for the first time MetaHuman Creator, you'll find a lot of these situations where if the MetaHuman is used as a base, our base is made from different characters from different ethnicities. So not all combination should work, and you need to make a study what you're doing and what are the characteristics for the person you are trying to achieve, and this will really help to understand better what you're, because we have some limited base of character that make MetaHuman arrive until a certain point. When this base will grow through the years, you will get more and more options to go and mix different things, which is like tricky. And the maturity is actually to know what works best with these elements when you combine them.
Speaking of MetaHuman Creator, it's accessible for anybody to go in and create a face in there, right? Like anybody that has a computer, web browser can go in there and create a face. But we've had some of our customers provide us with a face, send it through to us, and we look at implementing it for them. But generally, I found that it still requires a lot of effort from our team to clean up and fix and that sort of thing. My question is, what level of the sweet spot for people using the tool? When you see people using it, what level of understanding of anatomy and artistic background do you think somebody needs, or what what do you think is the baseline for people to use it?
It's a tough thing. I mean, I think it's not easy in general. I mean, even if the entire tool is easy to use, really easy to understand, I mean, when you enter for the first time, you just understand how it's working, and it's made like that, and it's super. But at the end, you need to know what you're looking for. Need to know. We were building entire briefs around characters, the preset characters. Since as a team, we had a privilege to work, and when the first version of MetaHuman was published, and we tried that tool and tried to make the entire briefs for each character, and tried to study the personality and try to somehow imagine from where it comes from which ethnicity, which are the characteristics for this ethnicity. So from all these standpoints, we are looking when we are approaching any of the characters. So when you open the MetaHuman Creator, you will find, 60 presets, and they're really thought from the beginning, from the personality standpoint, from the variety of features to be combined inside MetaHuman. So all these things, storytelling. I don't know if I now miss your question, but I think you cannot just jump in. You can try, you can play around. If you have feel for that, you will achieve results. We even tried that, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's less successful. But the most successful thing was thought from the beginning, initially conceptualizing anyway, and it can be done. I mean, you don't need to know to draw to be able to do that. It's enough to do a research, try to understand what you're looking for from the personality perspective, from the anatomical perspective, because in forensic anthropology supplies us with rich information of regional characteristics. Actually, these characteristics are attributes that can be considered a tool for a character artist. So we need to know and recognize that in our references to be able to proceed with work.
I think that's really interesting because when you see all the presets, it's very easy to assume that it's just like a random jumble, right? Because we have an existing paradigm for what MetaHuman Creator is, right? Which is character creators in games. And character creators in games, when you shuffle through them, quite often are just random assortments of facial parts and body parts and hair and things like that. And the results that people create with them are pretty wild sometimes, right? But MetaHuman Creator is definitely a level above it. And it's actually quite interesting just to hear from somebody that worked on it is that it is still quite, the depth of the tool is actually quite a lot, right? Like still come in with a plan, come in with a personality, come in with a brief of what you're trying to create, and then work with it, which is I think it'll be quite interesting for people to hear. It's also, what I also like is that we can extend upon it as well, is that if you can't quite hit what you need to hit, you can still continue to extend on it, which is kind of how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
Right. Next one, we've got Rudy. This one here, we've got a few more notes. We've got a bunch of custom sculpting and modeling. I've just clicked on the wrong thing. Texture modifications, groom, like all custom stuff. Clothes created in Marvelous, Substance Painter for texturing. And we've just got some textures for the clothing, it looks like. And we've got rocking the original MetaHuman sneakers.
This is great. This is, I mean, she's a journalist in this shot, in this particular shot.
What is it about it that says journalist to you?
I don't know. For example, in the first shot, I was ashamed to say, but she was wearing a yellow coat like Adrian O'Neill from Ninja Turtles. So instantly I was like, okay, this is yellow. And somehow I recognized this character instantly, but it was like maybe too personal. I think here the combination of hair and also the glasses make her a little bit serious in a kind of way. And I felt at the moment from this shot can be also a rock star. I mean, it's the pose that it's not conveying that emotion. But when we were looking at the example, the last slide was more like a portrait, right? And I think this is like, for example, the previous one was like random Instagram shot. It's not conveying any story. But with this, in this somehow in the look, I can feel she's like observing something. She's also confident to approach whatever. She's like trying to take a photo or a story or something. And I feel a confident woman here. And this is the emotion I just instantly captured.
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's a journalist from the head, and then the rest is just a whole different character. But I kind of, that really close-up shot that you was just on, I feel like if they just honed in on that a bit more and did some more angles of this, like Aleksa was saying, it kind of gives off quite a powerful, friendly, likable vibe. But I don't know if I feel the costume design and the tattoo, I don't know, the other poses, I don't really know. It feels a bit confused from shot to shot. Like they're trying to convey a different character by framing it differently. But I don't feel like it tells one character necessarily. And I feel like just adding the glasses kind of makes you go, all right, she's a journalist. So, you know, could they have done more costume wise to convey that too, not just throw some glasses on, you know.
Yeah, I would agree. If you cover up the head as like a different body, it's like a 20-year-old body on like a 35-year-old woman's head. It's like the professions don't match up. But yeah, the close-up detail of her face, like the next slide one over. Yeah, this one. Yeah, I feel like this one's a journalist too. And I like this, the details are subtle as well. Like she's got the smile, but it's like a lot subtler than the previous one we saw. So it doesn't go as much into the uncanny valley, which is good. Yeah, I think overall,
the dimple lines are nice.
good.
No, I was just saying the dimple lines, they're quite nice. They're not too strong.
Agree.
Yeah, I think everything about this deck has been pretty subtle, which I like.
Yeah, overall it's really like kind of friendly, nice. Just as you guys say, the head and the body is not really matching. Yeah, she showed too much skin to be that kind of personality, I guess. Yeah, the costume design, yeah, is a little off. If she can have a different top inside, be much better.
It is a very distinctive wardrobe choice. I would love to hear from Rudy why you chose that outfit. I think that'd be quite interesting to know your interpretation of the profile and the character, whether the clothing was a personal influence as well, whether that was something you preferred. But yeah, quite interesting when you've got such a bold clothing choice.
Madrid too hot.
Well, yeah, could be. That's true. Any technical comments?
I don't wear glasses, but if you go back one slide, the other way, that one, do glasses get that glossy, or I thought they were pretty shiny? Like,
I'm thinking it's just a really huge light. That's what I think they've done, because I can see it in the reflection of the eyes, right? Like the light looks really soft, and then Unreal really soften up the light and make it massive. I think that's what they've done, and it's probably why it's reflected that way. Or it could just be that the actual glass isn't shiny enough. But yeah,
it feels like the roughness is a little bit high on that. Like you can actually see the edge of the light, but it's kind of gone a bit satin looking.
Yeah, it's definitely not a flattering like size of light. I personally would never like light a portrait with like a humongous soft light, especially if you're smiling, because teeth just look awful when the light's soft as well, because you want to get some of that specularity on there and like the salivary pings like that happens. So, and you can see from this shot, like the teeth look super flat because of it. But in some other shots like this one, a little bit of that specularity helps. Just for me, just like things like the sclera feels really clean. And it'd just be nice to have a bit more asymmetry, maybe some veins that are different from eye to eye. Things like the hairline could use a bit of work. I even feel like the teeth could have more scatter as well. Like it's more like a tweak kind of thing, just if you wanted to push the realism. And also the nose piercing feels just a bit like it was photoshopped on top, like it doesn't have any shadowing, or it's kind of a weird one. So little things. But one thing I will say is that the smile, I think, is successful in this one. Like it feels very natural, which is nice. It doesn't have like a huge shadow around that nasolabial. So it's nice.
Yeah, talking about technical stuff, especially this image, usually when you tilt your head a little bit, your skin actually, like it kind of goes with gravity. So you can tell this is like perfectly symmetrical and there's no movement to the gravity, and like the neck isn't really, it's like the anatomy is not working. It's not actually muscles are changing. It's just like this, you got the head and you just moved it. And like even the hair is not really, like it doesn't feel like there's gravity at all in it.
That gravity aspect is a really tricky one. In the MetaHuman rig, there isn't a gravity control, is there, right? I don't think there is in the rig.
With like grooms, if you pose a character in Unreal and then you apply simulation to a groom, it should.
Oh, the groom will, yes. The groom will, yes, that's right. Not the face. I've used the rig before.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. No, that would you'd have to sculpt that in probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing most digital human artists kind of avoid, like skip over. They just kind of skip over gravity because it's like their face has a lot of drag on it. And it's just like, just the way you move it, your face changes with gravity, the hair, like the clothes, like things will be tight in certain sections. I think most people, like a lot of times it just looks like everything's a little floaty. And I think that ruins the believability.
Are we heading into
Yeah,
a
these-
world where more of that's going to be simulated?
I don't know if you could you simulate gravity on the face?
That'd be hard.
That would be hard. It's like with facial deformations and stuff. That'd be pretty difficult. I mean, suppose you could. You'd have to define what aspects of the gravity you like. Obviously, more the neck, the cheeks.
Mm.
Like here would be a little bit less.
Sorry, Aleksa, you were going to say something?
No, that was the interesting thing about the gravity that influenced actually the age of the character. I mean, during our aging process, the gravity play a main role in every. I mean, one of the things that definitely.
Yeah, it's kind
influence
of
a lot.
gross when you think about it. Like basically, your face is falling off your skeleton, and that's gravity.
Yeah, it's a really important thing when you're approaching modeling, and when we're looking at mostly at the young person, and what we are doing in the older and elder persons. It's main rule to understand how the skin is actually melting somehow, and the direction of the skin, and everything counts a lot. So you need to know what's behind the skin, and all these fat pads, and what happens during the age, and what happens with the skin during the age, and what if you were, I don't know, having very prominent smile, what will happen with this skin if you had a really huge smile? We'll probably have more wrinkles than people that were not smiling a lot. So all these things when you're modeling, it's important to know. And it's somehow related also to the character idea you make before you start working.
Yeah, I agree. I think having the understanding and seeing those levels of the skeleton, muscle, fats, it's like that adds believability. And most people are just kind of sculpt the skin thinking it's all one, but understanding that there's a skull under your mesh. Like when I sculpt things, I have this little skull.
Yeah.
I'll kind of like line it up with my model and make sure I've got the actual skull defined in the models. And so like once you've got the skull defined and you can actually feel it, it just makes it feel more correct once you've got the anatomy on that.
So interesting, like the aging aspect where the skin sags. Baolong, we've done a lot of projects where the customer is like, oh, it needs to be a little bit older or a little bit younger. Why is it so hard that once you've done the first pass at it and you try and come through and age the character, it's so hard, or make it younger? It's so difficult.
Yeah, you just have to imagine a lot of factors. Yeah, as you guys say, the gravity, the loose skin. There's a lot of things to imagine, so that it'd be hard. So this depend artist or whatever. If you have more experience, it'd be easier. But yeah, it's very difficult for me to imagine the same person getting older naturally. In common, you end up aging is like unnaturally. Some part over, yeah, like some cosmetic make a older, like a makeup special effect. Sometimes you can tell it's not really. There are a lot of things that have to consider it. So it's quite hard to aging people. For me, make younger is easier, but to make older it seems more difficult.
Really? I would say the exact opposite. Sorry, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'll say the exact opposite. I think young is harder.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
could be, yeah. But for me, as a younger, since I remove stuff. Yeah, but when do all the other more stuff?
Yeah, it's like the middle age is the easiest, I would say, like 30s. If you're too old, like then it's just so much work trying to sculpt in all these wrinkles, make that look realistic. And if you're too young, having not very much to sculpt, it's harder to make look realistic, isn't it? It's like less distraction. It's just smoothness. So I think a good like 30, 40-year-old is like an ideal age.
So why is younger easier, harder for you, Ian?
Why? Yeah, because there's like there's no distractions. Like you can see everything, and if you fail and you make that one thing wrong, it's the whole thing's failed. So it's like, but yeah, like when you get older, like 80 years old, you got so many wrinkles, there's so much distraction and noise and details that you can actually things will not look right, but you're distracted by all the details, so you can get away with it. It is more work to model an 80-year-old person with all the wrinkles, but I think it's easier to make it look more believable.
It's even for a body, for example, the body it's easier to work with some when you wanted to sculpt some masculine or I mean with the man with the muscles and or from the other side you have someone who don't have any accent, any muscle visible at all, and you need to catch the pose and the skin is not rough and the wrinkles are not existed, so it comes really difficult to work. So I will agree completely with Baolong in that case. I mean, even with you're not speaking with only with for the face, body.
Interesting. Okay. Wilson. Now, Wilson sent through a few in-progress shots, which I've just used as a background here. We've got custom texturing, sculpting grooms, custom work on the expressions, which I thought was quite interesting, that there was work on the expressions. XGen, groom, we've got sculpting and texturing using ZBrush and Substance Painter. Right, this is lucky last, I believe.
Saw this online today, funny enough.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was on ArtStation.
What is it, Florence or
Rome. Is it Rome?
Rome?
Is that right? Is
Yeah. Some Pete.
Right, those are the images. Go back through again.
I would like to start off by saying like I commend like some of the posing, like this sort of stuff is like tricky to do, you know. And like they've given a good go at it. Like I've always wanted to try like a selfie type portrait. So it's a really cool attempt. But I feel like, you know, technicalities aside, because yes, there are issues, like there's definitely a sense of a person. And I do also like that they've, like all the others, maybe I think all the others anyway, they're all kind of studio there, one they sort of grey background, you know, simple lighting. And I do feel like they've tried something a bit different here, which is nice. And this, you know, I love a good street bit of photography. So this is nice. I like it. They've done something cool here, I think.
Yeah, you can see multiple sides of her personality. Like it's not just one image been rotated around. They have actually made quite an effort on each image. Like each image is showing something different about her, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I'll say it's the most original one out of the group so far.
Yeah, just for me, get the brief is very, for me, I will imagine she be a person like this. The personality through the poses, expression is really well for me. Is the, yeah, technical part, actually technical part also I like the hairline is more organic, more softer. Also the face feature, they are, yeah, I'd say not perfect, but in the good looking side. Like say if you put the people ugly, half, yeah, she definitely the good part. So it's enough for make believable, friendly, all this stuff. Yeah, also, yeah, I'm not criticizing MetaHuman creator is really brilliant, but I don't see it. This one I see less MetaHuman creator, so I'm happy. I'm really like this one. even the clothes is from MetaHuman, but the overall the feeling, yeah, more than just the straight from MetaHuman creator. This I really like this one.
Yeah, sorry, can you go back to that page where it says what they did? So yeah, it looks, so the clothes would probably work from MetaHumans, right?
Yeah.
You can see in the top right image there, the before and after, but what you can't see is there's actually texturing and all that sort of stuff. It's the clothing from MetaHuman creator, but customized.
Okay, got it. Cool. I mean, I have no problems how people get to the end results. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you can't use scans, you can't do this, you gotta. For me, it's just like whatever method you can get to the end result and you can make that look good, that's all I care about. And so I think this person did a pretty good job creating a personality, even if they reuse the clothes and stuff, but it's like their faces feels very expressive. Definitely a personality there.
And the hair is great. Like that hairline, looks amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously at the ends, the hair by the shoulder, you know, in some shots, you know, falls apart a little bit, but the hairline part is like pretty top notch. Some like little things like shadowing on the teeth is a bit of an issue in some shots. Like it feels like the inside of a mouth is illuminated, which, you know, again breaks realism. But yeah, as a piece, I think it works. There's a bit of that issue again with the nasolabials in the smiling shot. Here again, kind of gives uncanny. I don't know if it's the way the light's hitting it and shadowing a bit weirdly, but and maybe slightly more redness on those gums too. They look a little bit grey. Yeah, she's smiling, that's for sure.
I find that area of fold and getting the smile correct is very sensitive to the sculpting you've done on the neutral as well. So like if I'm assuming Wilson's done modifications to the MetaHuman base mesh and brought it back into pose. But when I've worked with Baolong on that sort of stuff before, sometimes you just can't use the rig to get the smile correct anymore because of the because of all the sculpting that's been done. But I did see that they did custom work. Wilson did custom work on the expressions, which might be the reason why. But that's quite an ambitious smile to go for. Like that's like full smile. That's a impressive effort to go that far with it.
Definitely.
I kind of wish they made that expression go into the neck, because like the neck's got no detail, and it's a little distracting for me, because when he's smiling, you got always some stuff going on here.
Just pick up some ridiculous stuff, man. Spend that much time looking at characters and doing it.
Well, if you keep on looking for the same things over and over again, you get kind of used to it. Like if you go to the first line, you can tell that they skipped the ear again. It's like the ear is a little bit soft. So you just keep if you always look at the ears, you'll start seeing a pattern.
What I noticed here that really caught my eyes instantly was like some kind of irregularity in on the lips. They're not parallel, they are not perfectly symmetrical. There is a kind of distortion that this is why she's so realistic actually, because usually when you base everything on MetaHuman, you somehow rely on symmetrical modeling, and this is something that we are limited in that case. And here we did some extra modeling over the top. You can achieve these asymmetrical things, but nobody's symmetrical. There is, even if you look at the eyes, I feel the kind of, even in the smiling expression and even in neutral expression, there is a symmetrical volume of the eyes, of the entire eyes. So, and from the other side, I feel I know her for some reason. She's really familiar. The likeness is really familiar. I thought I saw her on the street yesterday, and I will be completely okay with she's likeness. And the awesome thing is about the city that introduced a story.
And so this is the only one where a background was used.
Yeah.
You know, daylight shots outside are difficult, right? Like how, like, can you guys comment on what it takes to do a shot and pull off a shot like this?
Probably is like HDRI here, the custom one. And at least I think that the MetaHuman shader is really sensitive to daylight. Even if you set up the skin, the certain color of the skin, it could reflect, it could overburn very easily if you're not somehow balanced with the HDRI. So I think here the light is really realistic on her face. Maybe the focal blurring of the image is something that it's not so photographic. I will expect to be more blurred, I think, but I'm not sure. And this is something that somehow make the second plan a little bit flat. But generally, the lighting and how the skin acts on the light, it's awesome. I feel it's really realistic. The only thing I feel it's missing is a little bit of blur, more depth focus. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Especially
just gonna add,
here. Yeah.
no,
No, I was thinking, especially here on the background behind his hair, she's hair. It's like too distant to be so sharp.
Yeah.
Sorry, Şefki.
No, I was just gonna say, like using HDRIs in Unreal is not really a thing. Like here's an Arnold or V-Ray, whatever you use, offline rendering. You can just chuck a HDRI into Maya, and then it pretty much gives you nice realistic lighting and shadowing. In Unreal, you have to fake it a lot more. So I imagine that they used some HDRI as a backdrop and then did some actual manual lights to light her, because there's no way, I don't think you could just chuck it. I mean, Aleksa, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't really do that. It doesn't work the same way. You know? Yeah. So they've done a good job anyway in terms of making you believe she's actually outside.
Yeah.
I feel like the lighting throughout the whole competition has played it pretty safe though. Like most of the lighting is either flat lighting, loop lighting, or Rembrandt lighting. And it's like that nobody's ever tried to do something more extreme, more complicated. So even
it's
like,
hard in Unreal.
Sorry, what's that?
I was gonna say it's hard in Unreal.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's different, you know. If in offline rendering is, you can play around a lot more and you're gonna get the right shadows in the right ways. In Unreal, it's not always gonna go the way you want. So you have to, you know, there's ways of cheating it slightly. So I think it's always safer to go with something a little bit more conventional when it comes to lighting in Unreal. And obviously these guys are probably, I don't know, but I imagine not like veterans in Unreal Engine, so it's a safer bet to do some simple lighting and make a good job of it. Then,
like for when you do your stuff, what breaks if you start changing the lighting?
do you mean in Unreal?
Yeah, Unreal.
What do you mean? Like what breaks? What lights are you?
Why is it harder in Unreal than it is on Maya to start changing?
Shadows, shadowing, literally full stop. Shadows just don't are a lot not the same in Unreal Engine because obviously it's real time. So it's Aleksa, please like correct me if I'm saying the wrong things, because I'm not like the biggest Unreal Engine expert, but all I know is that shadowing is just not the same. It doesn't react the same way that you would expect when you chuck a light on, and you have to fudge it a little bit basically to make things look good. I mean, it's much better than I imagine it used to be, but yeah, it's not the same. Like sometimes what I do is with my work now, like I'll do a version in Arnold and then I'll do a version in Unreal and I'm trying to replicate what I did in Arnold, but it's just not a one-to-one thing. Yeah.
I always find that if I go to like split lighting from the sides where the shadow meets the lights, I always have a hard time with making that look believable. That's one of the hardest challenges I find when I face digital humans. Because then that's why you see the normal maps. Whereas like it's too rough, too soft. It's like all that detail pops out and he just doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So yeah, flat lighting just kind of like it removes the shadows, so it's easier as well.
Yeah.
That's a hot tip for everyone for next competition. to get Ian's favor: nostrils, ears, and difficult lighting.
Don't do spotlighting.
And then it was shots like this. Baolong, were you going to say something?
The Unreal 6. That's waiting Unreal 6. Implement the very real Arnold lighting, so we can.
That's a request, Aleksa and Şefki. That's a request for you guys. Cool. I think we're coming to the end. I have probably kept you guys for a long enough time now. Time for a bit of a stop and a break and all that. But let's close it here. Would be keen to get final thoughts from you guys. First of all, from my side, is just once again, thank you for all the effort that you guys have put in as artists, for all of the people that competed, the ones that made the finalists as well as the ones that didn't. There's a huge amount of effort. You know, we allowed, we actually had to talk about the amount of time required to do this. You know, usually when we do it at UneeQ, we might allow a month to month and a half for a team of people to put one of these things together, deploy it, and get it live for use. So we've only allowed, I think it's about 4 weeks for each of you to do your participate and create a piece of artwork to submit. And we really had to balance between, is that too much time? Is it too little time? Like we had to keep the interest up and that sort of thing to get as many entries as we could. But we sort of thought, 4 weeks is actually quite a short period of time for someone to do something spectacular. So thank you for those that put in the effort over those 4 weeks to kind of submit something. But yeah, actually, maybe final thought. Just keen to hear from you guys. You know, like the amount of effort that's required. Like 4 weeks. You know, is it too short, too long? We should, how would you, based on what you've seen and the brief and all that sort of stuff? Like, what's your thoughts on the competition?
Yeah, I guess 4 weeks is a pretty quick turnaround, because it's like myself, I deal so much with the technical hurdles that 4 weeks would just not be enough time for me to focus on the artistic side of things. But I think overall, like the contestants and pictures they send were absolutely amazing in that time frame. It was really nice to see them, and it's honestly, digital humans are one of the most challenging subjects. Like we've been doing it, human beings have been the #1 subjects for all of art history, and it's been like the most. Every single person knows what a human looks like, and everybody's got a critique about it. So just to take on the challenge in itself is remarkable, and what we saw today was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, it's awesome. Really, we're somehow every day consult each other and see usual things, and this is always at a certain level. So the usual topics we discuss, I don't know, Şefki, every day we know our problems actually, and sometimes these are things that we saw now are for us are something that we maybe don't discuss so much. So this like really was a privilege even to share thoughts, how our people see that and to see the results. The time frame, I mean, I will agree with Ian, it's too short if you want to dedicate time for technical and for, because we, even from my standpoint, I can even somehow compare, because we in the production, we sometimes for the hero characters, we dedicate so much time to get all these details and go back and forth with the process. We put some basic lighting, then we boost normal maps and try to balance that. And it's the process that go over and over and over until we have our timeframes when everything needs to be done. But sometimes it's not, I can compare with real production. So from that standpoint, I think it's an amazing job in that time frame.
Go ahead, Şefki.
I was literally just going to say, like, I agree with you both. The work, it's like, yeah, to do it in 4 weeks is intense, very, very intense. So, and for me, it could take more than 4 weeks just to do a face. And these guys did bodies, posing, clothing, expressions. So kudos. It's good stuff.
Baolong?
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's quite. Yeah, as you also there are a lot of technical problem and artistic thing. If you have to balance these two, you can't spend too much time on the technical part. You lose the focus on the artistic. So balancing, fighting, yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Can
thank
I
you.
say
Oh
one
yeah,
more
yeah.
thing?
One more thing.
Sorry.
Are you going to release the Apple Vision Pro?
What's that?
No. One more thing. Apple Keynote. One more thing.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Ian.
You probably not like this one, Victor, but because everything was like a competition, I would never submit my work for a competition because I don't think art is meant to be competitive. Everybody here who did something, they did it because they love digital humans. They just wanted to show what they're capable of doing. And I think the most important thing to realize is that they actually are showing stuff they love. And it's like, I think everybody wins by doing that. And saying one is better than the other, sometimes people can feel like that their emotion is being outshadowed, and that's never the case. So I think just as for competitions, I try never to compete with people. It's just about how to express yourself and to just show what you love doing. So I think all these people won by doing so.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I agree as well. It to your point of taking risks as well, that if you're in a competition, you're probably not going to take the risks, right? You're going to do what you know best rather than experimenting and pushing things, right? You can see it in your personal work, like the one where you peel away the layers and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, this is a crazy piece of artwork that you did there, but it's your expression, it's your creative expression and artwork. And I think that's really special to do something that's outside of comfort zone. So I think that's really interesting. And I think if we do another one of these challenges, it'll be interesting to see how we format it. So once again, thank you for all the artists that participated. By the time you watch this, the results may already be out. So thank you for your time and thank you for your participation.